Hi, it's good to be with you again for our daily reflection. And Jenny, this is our penultimate one.
Yes, that's right. We're finishing at the end of July with our daily reflections. So
that'll be 4 months worth.
Yeah, quite a few.
4 times 5 by 17.
Yeah.
85.
That's a few.
A few
times. We've
started them with the real COVID, just to connect with people, and now that's a bit different here in Tassie. I think it's time for us to have our little rest. We might come back to it one day.
We might come back to it.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's not the end. We got one more tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the end.
So today?
Yes, today, 1 Corinthians 3:16, where Paul says, "Don't you know that you yourselves are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in your midst?"
Interesting context.
The context
is him talking about his work and about, Apollos does some, he does some.
And he's laid a good foundations
for them. And I think it's in talking about, we just got to be careful about our lives because, God dwells with us. And so we've got to be careful in terms of, using what God's given us and using it well. Some are going to, he just says, they're going to escape as if they just get through.
Yep.
And then others of us, hopefully, maybe I'll just scrape through one. But the idea of you're doing well what God's given you to do. And God dwells with us, so therefore, that's a pretty high calling to live up to and do the things that God's asked of you.
Yes, and that God's Spirit dwells in our midst, so we have a responsibility, don't we, to honour that. It's a pretty high privilege to have God's Spirit dwelling within you.
Yeah, and it's just not an individual thing. I think it's that God's Spirit dwells in your midst. Yeah. Not so it's between you.
So it's a plural.
It's plural. And so that brings into the whole question about our attitudes to each other, how we work with each other, how we care for each other. And in this context now, as part of the people that are going crooked Paul, if they're sick of Paul or whatever he teaches, and he's saying, just be careful what you say.
You can't take the words back once they're out there,
that's right. And be careful what you're criticising, be careful who you're criticising, because God's at work in this. And yes, Paul's saying, I did the foundation, someone else has built, or someone else has built and I do the next bit. Let's not critique that. Let's recognise that different people have got different jobs to do.
Different things. Yeah, that's right.
And so it goes on to say, do not deceive yourself. If any of you think you are wise by the standard of this age, you should become fools. Like, there's some people saying, we're better than you, Paul. Says, get careful with your pride. You're better. That's a dangerous place to get into.
Yeah. Or even not that we're better than you, but we know better than you.
Yeah.
We've got it worked out, and you haven't.
Exactly.
So that sort of attitude also is a foolish one.
Yeah, and it's a really important one that I try to work with in working with people from different denominations, you might say, with people who aren't believers, is to be very careful in the way in which we perceive of ourselves and what we understand and what we know. Not to overestimate ourselves, not overestimate myself, and always be open to God teaching us something new and something fresh, and not slipping into arrogance, because, God's at work in our midst. That's right, in some shape or form. Have our eyes open, have my eyes open to what it is that God's doing in this moment, even if the other person is not necessarily a follower of Jesus, and I don't agree with them fully about the things they're talking about.
And so I remember you talking before about, not on these reflections, but when you've spoken with various church leaders who see that what they're doing is God's mission on earth, of some huge church, and then you go and speak to another person, also a leader of another huge group of people, who also feel that they're the centre of what God's doing on earth. And yes, they're the centre of what God's doing in their world, but it can be broader than your own little...
Yeah, well, it's important for me. God used to get frustrated with everyone thinking that they were the centre of God's activity on earth. And I sense God said, I don't mind. In the sense that they're passionate about it, they're caring about it. Yes, when that overtakes their life and people become enemies and all the rest of it, there are problems with that. But there's nothing wrong to becoming passionate. So it was really about me being humble to accept this broad expanse of what God's doing through people and what people are doing, and God's saying, well, it's not too bad, is it? I like the diversity. I know, that's pretty good.
He's a diverse God, isn't he? He's made all sorts of different things all over the world.
So be careful about what you criticise. Be careful about whether you think you've got the pride and you've just got it all together. Be very open to all that God's doing.
Yeah, probably good to read the whole of chapter 3, 1 Corinthians, to get the gist of it.
Yeah.
Catch you tomorrow.
Bye.